morning, good afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, aboxwithnolid. A channel I'm creating not only to just bring awareness to the realities and the day-to-day experiences that complex trauma creates, but to delve into some of the mechanisms behind how we respond, and to explore different ways and paths of healing to improve the quality of all of your lives. Now, in today's video, in the next few videos, I want to start to explain some of the terms that I've used in several videos. The first being inherited predisposition. Now, yes, we can look up the dictionary meanings of the words, but what in the context of trauma does having an inherited predisposition actually mean? How does it play out? Now, since we created the science of epigenetics and in the modern world have started to explore what we inherit, how much information is contained within our DNA. And when you look at old world cultures, traditional indigenous cultures, and the cultures of the ancient world, and their understanding and their push for the importance of understanding legacy and heritage, of understanding the actions you do will influence the generations that come after you. This is not a new concept. This is a concept that's been around for a very, very long time. We inherit from our ancestry predispositions. And I believe that this comes down to predominantly everything that we are. We pick and choose between a library of inheritance to construct our personality and our perceptions, interpretations, and responses, for want of a better way of putting it. So what does it all mean when we really start to look at trauma and how we're trying to build a path to heal trauma? Having predisposition means you have, for want of a better analogy, and this is a very lay analogy, but gene expression, to really understand its involvement, is just think of there's thousands of switches, and all different combinations create different outcomes. There are some that are critical for our body's functionality. Others are all these little nuances in what we feel and what ails us, how much health we got, energy. Everything comes down to gene expression and which combination is switched on and which combinations are not. Now, when you look at epigenetics, they're the switch combinations of your ancestors. So they had this particular construct of gene expression that worked for their level of success and survivability in their life, and it goes back generation upon generation. That informational marker is basically stored as chemical trigger codes within our DNA. And when we are born, or when we're from conception and developing the womb, what crosses the placenta starts that first layer of what our body is going to be exposed to, which environment we're going to be born into, and what do we need to improve our survivability. And that is the predisposition aspect. So what our ancestors were exposed to sets the framework of what our body has as a response resource to pick and choose, potentially between tens of thousands of possibilities, to construct the best possible way of surviving and prospering within our physiological structure. But when you look in the context of generational trauma, you have multiple generations that have gone through specific types of hardship. And if you look at indigenous, that's the easiest observable example, is because the hardships are all coming from the same base, the same source. You have repeated predispositional inherited responses to threats, to starvation, to hardship, to violence, and so forth and so forth. Predispositions to alcoholism, predispositions to diabetes because of the variation in diet from traditional to modern, which is high manufactured sugars and so forth and so forth. When you come from a base diet which is very simple, which is meat and berry and forage derived, you don't have these highly concentrated synthetic sugars because they don't exist. When you expose that in a modern construct, you get the difficulties created by diabetes. Sugar is something our body absorbs the easiest, hence alcoholism has a higher predisposition in cultures that haven't had a long exposure to it. There are so many examples of how in inherited gene expressions, how epigenetics plays out, that it always astounds me that it is not commonly understood outside of higher end psychology circles, its influence and how it plays out in our day-to-day lives and how it plays out in trauma. Because if we've inherited a predispositional response to trauma, a heightened response, to where our body goes, well, our ancestors have gone through these hardships continuously and we've developed a resistance to improve survivability. When you experience something in the womb or early post-birth, that gets engaged. Our body goes, it's happening again, it's the same as our ancestors. So we have all these responses that are encoded that start turning on genes, turning off other genes, so that our body is prepared to survive it. Some people go, well, that's a good thing. In one construct, yeah, it's not really, but it can be easily seen that it is. Because with everything that's turned, every gene expression that's altered and turned on, every response process that's engaged, something has to be turned off. There's only a set number of processes that can be engaged at any one time. Think of it like in your house with the amount of wall sockets and appliances. You run everything at once, you short out the power or you get a fire. The same thing happens within our nervous system and within our body. There's only a set number of processes, there's only a set number of resources. So with everything that's turned on, something gets turned off. And this is how it plays out for trauma. And this is the part that the reason that I'm making this video is when we understand that, putting it in a simple example, when we withdraw into a freeze state, we're isolated. So our attachment is altered and affected. All forms of attachment and connection are altered and affected. So whilst we remain active in the freeze state, we will seriously struggle with any form of attachment and connection until we can create a balance and getting that response to lessen. Now, having a predisposition trauma response means that when trauma responses are triggered, our body responds stronger than if somebody didn't have any of those predispositions. So this is why it gets important when we're looking at what are we going to ask and where we're going to go to seek healing. Because if you have not inherited predispositions to trauma responses, which in most societies in the world, that's pretty rare now. But if just say you have, you've come from 10 or 15 generations where life has been pretty good, the level of resource that you would need to deal with a traumatic experience is less. It doesn't need to be as depth, it doesn't need to be as intense, it doesn't need to be as prolonged, because you have these predispositions to a healed way of functioning, of responding. But if you've inherited for coming from an ancestry with multiple generations that have experienced trauma and hardship, you have all these layers of resource. That means that the resources you need to heal need to be more in depth and more experiential. You need to be able to prove to the body that you are not under that type of threat and it needs to respond differently, create those gray areas, create the paths of negotiation and so forth to get the body responses to back down to allow you to make changes. So basically that in a nutshell is what an inherited predisposition is about. Now it plays out in many, many ways. It also plays out in how trauma affects the body, in the predispositions for cardiac, respiratory, digestive issues, immunological issues, so forth and so forth. But it is really important to understand because, one, it helps you go, well, talking stuff is not going to work. I need to experience different ecologies to teach myself and my body and my nervous system, everything that I am, that I'm in a different environment to the environment that harmed me, and to learn how to connect and so forth and be part of. Having this information also, when you seek support outside, it's even though in the Western medicine field they don't really get it yet, it can help explain the severity of some of the symptomologies, the chronic aspects that come with living with complex trauma. And it also can explain why basic testing, as I said in past videos, is pretty much useless in diagnosing this stuff because the markers have altered. When our gene expression is altered, the chemicals that they look for in basic tests are different because our gene expression is altered. So the body is responding differently, therefore it won't show up. And that's why in so much testing for people that have lived with complex trauma for many, many years, your tests always come back as negative. There's nothing wrong, or within normal parameters, and your doctor kind of looks at you like a joke. But this is why the symptomology gets so severe, is because the body is preconditioned to have a more extreme response to what happened because it's been multiple generations created. So basically, guys, that's what I mean by inherited predisposition when I raise it in all different ways in videos. As always, I love you guys' comments and feedback. Please be kind, please be gentle, please be respectful, and I'll see you next time. Hope.